So, welcome back. Here we are back inside of Maya. And what I want to do is I need to add in a fluid container. So, I'm going to come here and go to my normal dynamics set because my fluids are still in here underneath the dynamics. Now, I know if you're using a newer version of Maya, like Maya 2017, they have moved all of these things into a concentrated area, so everything is not as spread out anymore. They've finally tried to unify the old with the new inside of Maya 2017. Now, me personally, I really just don't love Maya 2017, and I would rather continue to use the traditional Maya 2015, 2016 that is, 2016 was starting to get a different interface. Most of the things that I have are already for 2015, so I just keep 2015 and I'm fine with using 2015. So anyway, I'm going to make myself a fluid container. So here inside of Dynamics, I'm going to go in here and say Fluid Effects, and I'm going to say that I want to create a 3D container. I don't want to do one with an emitter. I just want to do a container. So I'm going to say Create 3D Container, bring it in there. There it is. And I want to select both of my particle systems and select my fluid container. Go back to my fluid menu, and I want to say Add Edit Contents, and I want to say Emit from Object. So what I have done right now is I have basically connected, see that? I've connected my particles to my fluid container. If I move my fluid container over here, so let's say we move it over here, you'll see, look, nothing happens because the fluid container has to envelop the objects that are being emitted from. So I'm going to take this and kind of clean this up a little bit. So bring this back in here like this. So now I've got this, and it's like, there we go. There's my fluids. Now, something that's very important. I no longer need to see this surface, so I can hide that surface. I can even come in here and hide my particles because I don't need to see them anymore. The only thing that I'm looking at is my actual fluid at this point. Now, these two are connected, and I'm going to rewind this. So with my fluid, let's actually hide this curve. So with my fluid, I'm going to select my fluid box. Let's look at some things inside of my fluid box. First of all, I'm going to come in here and go to my Autoresize, and I'm going to say Autoresize. I'm going to turn that on. And max resolution is 200. And let's go back and play this back. You can see the box will kind of jitter and move and fall around just so it can start to understand, how to generate this. Now, right now, my box is still sitting straight up. So as the particles are being generated, they're just pushing up farther, or as my fluids rather are being generated, they just keep pushing up, 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 and up. Well, I know that the wind should come off of my tornado. So to fix that from the start, I'm going to select my fluid container, go in here to my channel box, and I'm going to rotate this thing onto its side. So I'm going to rotate it on X, like 90 degrees. So now it's on its side, and you'll know it's on its side because the floor of it, the kind of X's here, this grid pattern will be on one of the sides of it. So now if I play this back, it still works, and you can see that my wind is it's almost like wind is pushing off on it this way, which is kind of what I want, right? So that's good. That's kind of what I want. So let's start looking at my fluids and see some of the content details of my fluid. So I'm going to go here to content details, look at my density, and then I'm going to rewind this and play it back. So the first thing I can look at is dissipation. So I can look at how quickly this dissipates. So if you see right now, I turn my dissipation up. This will dissipate pretty quickly. I'm going to dissipate maybe at 5. So you'll see now it only, before it can push off really heavy, it's already dissipating. So let's maybe make it 6. Give it a little bit of, I want to give it a little bit of time before it dissipates. So let's say 4. That's still too quick. Let's say 3. Now you can change these settings while you're working, so that's kind of cool that you can still change these while you're working with this. And I can also So this is kind of what we have right now. So I've got my fluid shape, and I've got two fluid emitters. These two fluid emitters are based off of the fact that I have two particle systems that are emitting fluids into my fluid container. So if I look at fluid emitter 1, I can look at this and see that I'm adding 1 density in voxel per second. If I added this up to like 20, I can add 20 per second, and you can see now it gives me a more voluminous kind of feel to this. It's kind of blowing off. Let's maybe say we're going to do this at 10. And fluid emitter here. So each fluid emitter has to be set independently of each other. And I'm also going to come in here and look for my turbulence. That's good. I'm going to set my actual, let's do a emitter. So right here under my basic emitter attributes, I'm going to set a use distance. So I'm going to say 0 to 1. Once again, 0 to 1. That same thing is coming up again. So that's kind of going on. Got that going pretty good. I'm going to give it some turbulence. So on fluid emitter 1, let's add some turbulence to it. You can see it's starting to get turbulent up there. It's not as nice and neat as it was before. I'll go to this one and add some turbulence to this one as well. So you can see it's very tumultuous right now. Let's do this maybe at 5. So it's got some turbulence going on with it. And that looks kind of good. And I'm going to go back to my fluid shape. And one of the things that I want to turn up here in my properties, I want to turn this up to maybe, now I do need to stop this to make this happen. So I'm going to say 60 as my base resolution. And I want to rewind it. Hit enter on it and rewind it. So now I should have, there we go. I've got a more, I've basically end up having a higher base resolution. So now this is really, really thick kind of cloud that's being generated. I'm going to go to my content details and I'm going to turn up my dissipation now. So my dissipation, I'm going to turn this up to like 5. So I want it to dissipate really pretty quick. But I can see this is starting to, give me something kind of cool coming on with these particles. They're very turbulent right now. So I'm going to stop this. I'm going to add a little bit of noise to this. So you can see these guys are pushing off, and now Maya's starting to get kind of slow. So I can also come in here and play with things like density, tension. Let's maybe turn down the resolution just a tad. I'm gonna go down to like 40 and make sure you hit enter and make sure you rewind so that it takes it. So yeah, that's a little bit less taxing on the system. So yeah, that's that. Stop this. And I can look in here at things like turbulence and velocity. So I can turn the turbulence up of my actual fluid, not on the emitter, but on the fluid itself. So you can see now the fluid is starting to have even more turbulence to the fluid. So when you're working in here with turbulence, this is the turbulence of the actual fluid once it's been generated. The turbulence here on these emitters is at the time of emission. So it's turbulent when it emits. But I can also go in here to the fluid shape and be giving turbulence to it as it's inside of the kind of the object. Now, something that's pretty cool. I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to go down here to lighting. And I'm going to say self-shadow. So with self-shadowing on, now I actually get this kind of voluminous kind of cloud thing going on here that is that's pushing off of this. And that, I have to admit, that looks pretty sick. That looks pretty sick. So I'm gonna also go in here and look at my shading. Currently right now this is set to white. I'm gonna set this to like blue. See that? It changes the color of all of it. Now I could change this and put two colors on this and actually have an X gradient. I could have a Y gradient. I could have a Z gradient. You know, I could even do it based off of density. So where it's denser at, it would be one color, and as it breaks off, it's less dense. So if I watch this, if I play it back now, oh, look at that. That's some cool next level type smoke effect thing going on there. So I've got my kind of super tornado going on. And that's kind of going on in there just like that. Now, one thing that I will look at, I'm going to turn my particle systems back on. I'm going to turn everything, I'm going to unhide everything for just a second. So what I want to do is maybe I want to scale up. Let's say I want to scale this stuff up. So I'm just taking this stuff and scaling it up and scaling it out. Now by doing this, I also have to go back and actually rebuild my particles, because they're going to still be stuck at the old way. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to go to my fluids really quick, go all the way to the very top and just say disable evaluation. I don't want to evaluate those right now. I'm just going to grab my two particle systems and then come back in here to my end dynamics, go to my end cache and say create cache, and you'll see it says, you know, add another cache and blend it or replace the existing cache. I want to replace it. And do I want to replace existing? Yes, I want to replace the existing one. So now my particles will regenerate. Now you can see as I actually made my tornado funnel larger, the particles still follow, because the particles are attached to the surface with those expressions that we gave it. So they're actually attached to the surface, and it doesn't matter how big I make my surface or how small I make my surface, they're going to follow my surface as I make changes to it. So that's honestly really cool, because I don't have to sit there and make those changes and do it all over again. I can just say, okay, well, I've made changes to my surface, you know, go at it. And that actually works really well. So I'm going to let this generate out all of my frames once again, and let this go on ahead. All right, let this go on and do what it needs to do. And there we go. So I've got that going on, and everything looks like it's coming along well. Boom. And that looks good. Yeah, so everything's generating out. We're at about 1,000 frames right now, and we're close to our 1,600. I'm going to go ahead and let these frames generate out. I'm going to pause the video while these generate, and once this gets through generating, I will come back and we'll look at what our new fluids will look like with these new particles inside of them. So we are back. Maya has finished caching out our particles. So I'm going to go back in here now, and I'm going to turn back on. I'm going to uncheck the disable evaluation and then let Maya's fluids go back and reevaluate. So now my shape is a lot bigger. So it's probably going to take a time to be able to evaluate this. Yeah, my fluids are really slow right now. I'm going to stop them and go here, and let's hide this, and let's go hide. Actually, I'm going to leave my particles on just to see them. And let's just turn down the amount of resolution they have. That'll help with getting this to go quicker. So you can see now, there we go, there they go. They're kind of streaming in.